Welcome to our program today on finance involving Osprey Hub and our procedures for finance for student organizations. So let's get started, shall we? So the first thing we want to go over is how your budget works. So every year, student organizations have to apply for a club budget from Student Senate. That annual budget is allocated by the Student Senate Finance Committee, and that budget is available until May 30th of each year. So if you have money in your budget account this year, you have until May 30th. You must reapply for that annual budget for the following academic year. Again, this is something that Student Senate in our office will inform you of when we get into the spring. So it's important when we get to the spring that you make sure you pay attention to those dates and the forms that you need to complete. Your revenue funds, on the other hand, is money that's generated by your organization from fundraising. And that revenue fund carries over from year to year. So if you raise money for your organization, it goes back into that revenue account. It carries over. You don't have to worry about losing it. So what we're going to show you is how you look at your finances on Osprey Hub and how you can see both your club budget and your revenue funds. So if you go onto your Osprey Hub page, if you are one of the administrators on your account for your student organization, you'll be able to see a Manage Organization button in the top right corner of your screen when you go to your page. What that does is bring up a little accordion menu on the left, and when you click on that menu, this is what you'll see. You'll see this left menu here with your roster, about, events, news, gallery, documents, forms, elections, finance, and service hours. So today we're talking about finance, obviously, so this is where you are going to find it. So when you click on finance, this is the page that comes up. As I said, you're going to be able to see both your regular budget and your revenue funds. So here's the example we have here with the Active Minds account. You'll see that you'll see in there their overall club budget that they have with their balance and what is available, and their revenue account, which also shows their balance and what's available. We'll talk a little bit in a few minutes about the difference between balance and available, but essentially, when you're putting in requests to spend money, it's going to show you what's in your account. But then once you put in paperwork to spend some of that money, then it's obviously going to subtract that, and that's what you're going to see in the available column. So this is what that page looks like. So speaking of purchase requests and how you spend your money, the first thing you're ever going to do when you want to spend any of your money, whether that be purchases out of your budget or purchases out of your revenue, anytime you're spending any of that money, you're going to want to do a purchase request. A purchase request is a record of money being spent from an organization's account. It's necessary for every single expense, right? So we'll show you where that is in terms of what the button looks like and where you find that form. It's also right next to the funding request. The difference between a purchase request and a funding request is the funding request is when you're actually requesting Student Senate finance for additional funds for maybe a specific trip, an event, or initiative. It's also known as a supplemental request. So you might hear people refer to it as that. That used to be our official language for what we called it. But through Osprey Hub, you're going to see only these two options, the purchase request and the funding request. So as I said, I'll show you the button where you're going to find this information. So again, when you're back on this finance page, I already showed you where you can look at your accounts. You're going to see columns too for purchase requests and funding requests right in that middle. So you're going to be able to see kind of a breakdown of all of those things on the main part of the page. But if you look to the top right, you're going to see a button that says Create New Request. It's a drop-down button with two options. The first one being create that purchase request, and the second one being create that funding request. Chances are you're mostly going to be using the create purchase request. Again, that's anytime you spend any of the money out of either of your accounts. So this is kind of what a purchase request looks like. So when you go into that form, you're trying to spend money, whether it is you're planning a trip, you're purchasing t-shirts, you're purchasing things for an activity that your club organization is doing, you're going to complete this form. In the subject area, you'll want to put what it is that you're actually purchasing, what is the requested amounts that you're going to be spending. Now, if you think something's going to be around $45, put $45. If it ends up being $42 or $47, that's not a big deal. That's something that we will fix after the fact. This is just a purchase request to kind of have an idea of what you're trying to spend. And then the description, you can put into a little bit more detail about what this purchase is for. The payee information, right, is an area where a lot of folks get confused and get this wrong. So we want to make sure you understand what you're going to be putting there. So the payee information is the person or vendor that's receiving the payment. So it's not the person completing the form, because that's what happens a lot of the time, right? So, my name's Joe. I'm not going to be putting my information, putting Joe under there. What I'm going to be putting in there is whatever the vendor is. So if it's a speaker that we're contracting to come speak at Stockton, we put in their information. If we're ordering from Amazon, we might just put Amazon on there, okay? But the payee is the person that's receiving the money. On the right, you're going to see categories. So it's important that we try to categorize what it is that's being purchased or contracted. We want to know exactly what area this money is being spent for. So there is a drop-down menu with a lot of different options. If it's for an event, there are several options that are related to an event. If it's for a trip, there's also several options related to the trip. But then general programs and stuff that you do on campus, or maybe it's apparel, you're buying t-shirts or polo shirts, right? Contracted services, might be a speaker. It's all kind of broken down right there. If you ever have any questions about what category you should choose, just reach out to your student development advisor. But again, it's not a huge deal. It's just us trying to get an idea of what it is that you're trying to do. So this is what the second page of that form looks like. It continues down. You're going to see, you already put in the vendor information in terms of their name and address. It's also going to ask for their phone number and email address if one exists. If we're talking about Amazon, we don't expect you to find Amazon's phone number. But again, if you're contracting with a speaker company or something like that, then that's when we might want to have a vendor phone number or email address. The URL of event page, or explain how this will be used not at an event. So a lot of purchases are related to an event that your organization might be holding. So if that's the case, you really should have already created an event on Osprey Hub for your program. So that being said, we want you to cut and paste the URL of that event from Osprey Hub right there on that line. That helps us connect the purchase to whatever you're actually doing. This purchase will be completed by, and that's where we ask you whether or not it's we're going to pay by credit card, take it to a real store, credit card online transaction, pay by check, or internal transfer. So you'll see there we kind of explain a breakdown of what those means. Internal transfer is something within Stockton. So if you're buying food from Chartwell's, if you're using a print shop to print posters or flyers, that's an internal transfer. Pay by check, some vendors like speakers might want to be paid by check following their program. So that's something that we can do on our end if you choose that option. Credit card online transaction, a lot of the time your student development advisor can do the purchase for you online, or take it to a real store. So if you do need to purchase items from Home Depot or Michael's or ShopRite, then we'll be able to let you sign out a credit card from student development to do that. So those are what the options are. Preferred date and time to check out credit card. That's where that's important, right? If you're going to take it to a real store, please list a specific date in order to reserve a credit card. It's not necessary for online transactions, but this piece is really important because that lets us know when exactly you want to come to our office to borrow a credit card. If you don't give us a date and time or communicate that to us, we might not necessarily have a credit card available for you at that time. Again, we have close to 200 organizations on the campus through our office, and only a limited number of credit cards. So it's really important that we kind of figure out when it is that you're going to come borrow it.
Joe, can I add one comment?
Mm-hmm.
On this form, I don't think it's showing on this screenshot, but we do also have a box where you can put your need by date. So if you're doing an online purchase for Amazon or something else, it's beneficial that we know what date you need these items received by, so that we can ensure that the shipping method is correctly selected.
Thank you. Very good point. It's always based on what Melissa just shared too. It's really important that you plan ahead. If you do want to purchase items for a program that's coming up, it's better that you do it further in advance than right before the program. For that reason, if it's something that needs to be shipped to us, you might not necessarily get it in time if you wait until the last moment. So make sure you plan ahead. So further down on this page, you'll see please upload backup, whether that's a quote, an invoice, the pre-contract form that we have on our site, online shopping cart, right in my screenshot. This lets us, again, this is backup to give us, what it is exactly that you are asking to pay for, right? So if it's, you're ordering shirts or you're hiring a speaker, you're very likely to get a quote or an invoice. So that's really important backup for us. You can complete that pre-contract form that we have on the student development website. A lot of the time you want to order stuff online, take a screenshot of that shopping cart and put it in there. And that really helps us. The second part is the W-9 form. So if you are hiring somebody, like a speaker or a new company we're working for, we need that W-9 form from them. So that's easy to find. If you can't find it, you can just email your student development advisor. We'd be happy to give you a copy of a blank W-9 form if it's a student, for example. But if you're working with a speaker company or a t-shirt vendor, then they have a W-9. So you just ask them for it, and they should be able to send that to you right away. We ask you to upload that as well. That's really important, particularly for new vendors that we haven't worked with before, so their information is not on file. And anytime you need to scan documents and upload them to the computer or something like that, that's what the resource room is for. We'd be happy to help you over here. So please let us know if you need to scan anything, to upload so that you can put it, on this form when you're completing it. And we just ask you do not attach picture files. So please make sure, if possible, that you're uploading it as a PDF, for example. All right, so here again is where you're going to see the purchase request, the funding request, the accounts. In the middle of the page, if you click between these, you'll be able to see what it is that you have put in purchase requests for in the past, funding requests in the past. It's important to look at this too, especially if you're the treasurer, because you'll see not only does it give you obviously the subject, the approved amount, the date approved, but it also gives you the status. So you'll be able to see where you are in the process of that actual purchase request or funding request. So the example here, if you look at the status column, you'll see that the bottom three have been completed. So those are purchases that are done. You probably received those items. Those payments have been made already. But the top two say approved. So they're still in the process, possibly, of not being completed. They have been approved, they're moving forward, but they're not done. So that kind of helps you understand like where you are in the process and get an update on whether or not your items have been approved. Again, if you go in here and you see that you put in a purchase request maybe 3 or 4 days ago, and it still doesn't say approved, it's a good opportunity to reach out to your student development advisor to remind us to look at the purchase request for you so that we can approve those on your behalf. Contract vendors for apparel and promotional items. So we have here listed Ace Screen Printing, Promotions and Unicorns 2, and Quality Concepts. These are 3 companies that we work very closely with. So if you're looking for apparel and promotional items, these are the top 3 vendors that we want you to first consider. We want you to order from these companies. Of course, if they don't have an item that you're specifically looking for, then we can go elsewhere. But we want you to exhaust these 3 before you move on. So that's important. So please remember these, write these down. I order all of my shirts from Ace Screen Printing. They're great and they're local, and their prices are great, most importantly. So again, look at these 3 vendors before you look at other vendors. We do also have a Business Prime account. So as I said earlier, we can order things for you through Amazon. Make sure we order it because we have the Prime account. We don't want anyone ordering anything on their own account. Again, mark these down. I think it's important. But again, stuff to put on your purchase request. All right, so that funding request that we talked about before. So maybe you need supplemental money that you don't have enough money in your budget account from Student Senate to cover an event or program that you want to do. Something's come up, something new, and you just didn't budget for it previously, so you need those extra funds. So a funding request, again, is asking Student Senate for additional monies. So much like the purchase request, you're putting in a lot of that same information in here, basically going to Student Senate to say, hey, this is what we are asking extra money for, and providing them details so they have something to look at to understand what it is that you're trying to do. So again, some of the same information, subject, description, what is the request and amount you're actually asking for, those categories we had listed before, and again, account. So you might want extra money going into your budget account to spend, for a program or a trip or something like that. So again, the breakdown, what type of request is this? So maybe you're asking Student Senate for money for a program, for a specific purchase, travel. So maybe it's a conference or something like that for your members. So you want to put that information in here. What is the estimated attendance for this request? Who is this event intended for and how many students will attend? We want to know, is it only for e-board members? Is it for your general membership? Is it open for the student body? So it's important to put that information in here. Has your organization received funding during the current academic year? If yes, please describe. So say you did receive $2,000 for the year, which is budgeted for other things, and you just had this this idea to do this additional program, and it might cost $200. So put what you received from Student Senate in there. Let's say we just came up with this idea. It's not within our current budget for what we've already budgeted for. So this is in addition to that. For the next set of questions, use each line to describe the itemized list of expenses. So we want you to do an actual breakdown of what it is you're requesting. So if you're doing a program and you have to purchase like 10 things to do this program, we want you to kind of break that down a little bit instead of just giving us the one number and not breaking it down. So list those expenses, include the item description and the price, so there's kind of an understanding of what it is you're trying to do. And then just go from there. So it gives you different boxes so that you can break down each one. And of course, if you have any backup material regarding the event or program you're trying to do, whether it's an invoice, estimated travel expenses, hotel quotes, etc., please upload it for us as well. Because again, it might be a conference, it might be a trip, so you should be able to get some of that backup information that you can upload. And then what is the total cost of the event? Not just the total requested, but the total cost. So what do we mean by that? So maybe you do have $200 to $300 in your budget that can go towards this event, but it really costs $500 to go. So in here, say you put $500, right? What is the total of the club's contribution? 300. And what is the total of the personal contribution? Which basically means are your members actually going to put forward any money? Because that's important too. So maybe you're going to a conference and you want to ask each member who's attending to just pay $50 out of pocket, and the rest will come hopefully out of Student Senate and the club's budget. So it's just asking for that breakdown there. Deposit forms. So this is one of the only forms that we still do on paper. There's a reason for that, but anytime that you want to put money into your account, so maybe you've been doing fundraising or doing philanthropy stuff, anytime you collect money and you need to deposit it, so whether it's cash or checks, right, you're going to want to complete this form. So it's pretty simple form. Obviously, you put the date on there. Do not worry about the fund number, the organization number, the account number. That's something that we will handle on our end. What's most important is that you put the name of the organization that you're depositing money into. Category could be fundraising, philanthropy. Just give us a little bit of information about what this is for. And then checks must be listed below. So if you collected 5 different checks from individuals, we want you to kind of list the check number and the amounts and maybe the name, just so we make sure we don't lose anything, first of all, and it's kind of broken down, okay? Then club organization information. Club organization, that's where you put you sign, you put your name so we know who's putting in this deposit, and then student development, that's where we sign, the bursar's office sign. So really all you're doing is the name of your organization, the category, listing the cash and the checks that are there, and then giving us your information so we know who filled out the form. Very simple. And then obviously give us the checks and the cash with that. We typically put it in the safe and do deposits fairly frequently through the bursar's office. So we also want you to know, so if you go to the student development website, right, you'll see the menu on the left. You're going to see standards of practice, which is going to have a lot of our financial procedures, a lot of the stuff that I just talked about, you'll be able to find in writing there. You'll find frequently used forms. So familiarize yourself if you're an organization leader, particularly with those 2 areas, I would say. Standards of practice and frequently used forms. Just before you have any questions about where to find certain things, that should be able to answer a lot of that for you. So that kind of really concludes a lot of the information that we wanted to provide you today. Again, we know you might have some additional questions related to organization finances, but please feel free to ask us any questions either right now or later on. Reach out to your student development advisor. We're in the office, so please let us know if you need help with anything. So we're going to actually put the link in the chat for our attendance today. We want to make sure that if you attended this program, that we mark it down. So in order to do that, we ask that you go to the link in the chat, which I will bring up momentarily. I'll do it right at the end. But before we head out, I do want to share some of the additional programs that we have coming up either today or later in the week. So this financial procedures program, we're also going to be doing tonight at 7 p.m. We're doing a program right after this called Advocacy in the Digital World. So please attend that if that interests you. And then every day this week, we're also doing an Advisor Ask Me Anything. So if you do have questions for us regarding any of the programs we're doing this week, questions that have arisen from those programs, general student organization, procedures, questions, please drop by, ask us questions. You could just drop by for a minute, ask us a question and go. But it's an opportunity for us to be able to give you some FaceTime and answer questions. Then you'll see for the rest of the week some other great programs, digital marketing hotness, virtual involvement fair and recruitment strategies, breaking the ice on Zoom, and self-care in COVID times. One I think is particularly very important right now. So please check out some of those programs remaining in the week. As always, I want to remind you next week is our virtual Get Involved Fair. So every student organization should be able to be a part of this. If you go to your Manage Organization under your page, you'll see options for each day of the virtual Get Involved Fair. You'll also see one for Meet the Greeks. That's for fraternities and sororities, but the same premise. And should be able to fill out each day, put information about your organization, and then provide a Zoom link. As always, remember to upgrade your Zoom account before this program. So if you haven't yet, make sure you go to the Stockton Zoom website, stockton.edu/Zoom, and log in there so it automatically upgrades your account. If you're already logged in, you might want to log out and then log back in so it makes sure it catches it. But that's really important to do if you're the one hosting your organization's Zoom page for the Get Involved Fair. And then again, just want to remind everybody, October 8th through 11th, we are having University Weekend. It's going to be a little bit different this year because it will be virtual, but we still want to have lots of activities. So if your organization is interested in being a part of University Weekend and want to do some virtual programming of some kind, we really encourage you to do so. Let us know what it is that you're thinking about. Talk to your student development advisor. We're really excited about this. So that is all we have for today.